Ever notice how some people make you feel amazing after a conversation? You walk away thinking, wow, that was a great chat. But here's the weird part. They barely talked about themselves at all. That's not an accident. It's the connection equation at work, and questions are the most powerful variable in that equation. We all say we want deeper connections, yet most conversations are just us waiting for our turn to speak. It's like showing up to a feast with only photos of your own cooking. Here's the truth. Your brain is literally wired to bond with people who show genuine curiosity about you. When someone asks thoughtful questions, your brain releases oxytocin, the same chemical that builds maternal bonds and romantic attachment. Questions aren't just conversation tools, they're biochemical connection creators. Suddenly, everything changes. It's not about being interesting, it's about being interested. Questions are the difference between forgettable interactions and relationships that last. They transform how people think about you without changing a single thing about who you are. Think back. Who was the last person who really asked about your passions, dreams, or even your weekend, and actually listened? How did you feel afterward? That's exactly what people will feel about you when you master asking questions that matter. Chapter 1: The Brain Science of Being Remembered. Your brain is constantly filtering what to remember and what to forget. And one of the strongest filters: emotional significance. When someone asks a thoughtful question that makes you feel seen and understood, your brain flags that moment as important. That interaction goes into your interesting person folder, not the forgettable trash bin. Great questions make people feel understood, valued, and interesting. It's like having a superpower for being memorable. You could spend hours talking about your accomplishments, or ask one question that makes someone feel truly seen. Guess which approach sticks? Here's the funny part. We obsess over what to say about ourselves when the real secret to being remembered has nothing to do with talking about ourselves at all. We're all studying for the wrong test. That's where the curiosity gap comes in. An intriguing question opens a loop in someone's mind. Their brain wants to close it by exploring the answer. Suddenly, conversation becomes neurological engagement. Mastering questions isn't just chatting. It's working with the brain's fundamental wiring for memory and connection. That's real power. Chapter 2: Open versus Closed. Not all questions are equal. The structure of a question determines the depth of connection it creates. Closed questions can be answered with a yes, no, or single word. Did you have a good weekend? Do you like your job? Useful, but dead ends. Open questions invite stories, perspectives, and genuine sharing. What was the highlight of your weekend? Which parts of your work do you find most fulfilling? See the difference. It's like offering someone a single potato chip versus an entire meal. Which type of question creates a more satisfying experience? Here's a simple upgrade that transforms any basic question. Instead of asking did you or have you, start with what, how, or in what way. That small shift turns dull questions into ones people actually enjoy answering. We default to closed questions because they feel safer. Less vulnerability, less risk. But connection doesn't happen in the safety zone. It happens in the vulnerability zone. Another powerful structure is the what about you question. Notice how mediocre conversationalists lead with I statements. I went to that restaurant last week. I loved that book too. Flip it. What did you think of the food there? What resonated with you about that book? Open questions aren't just technically better. They send a social signal. I genuinely want to hear your full perspective. And people rarely forget that signal. Chapter 3: The follow-up secret most people miss. This is where most conversations fall apart. The follow-up, or lack of one. Harvard research shows follow-up questions are one of the strongest predictors of being liked and creating connection. Most people ask one question, hear the answer, and pivot back to themselves. Magic happens in the second, third, and fourth questions. Going deeper shows you're genuinely interested in understanding them. Think of it like this: the first question opens the door. The follow-ups walk you into the house. Most people never make it past the doorway. When someone answers, they're giving you a map of what matters to them. Each detail they emphasize is a breadcrumb. This is important to me. Example: you ask, how was your weekend? They say, pretty good. I finally got to that hiking trail I've been wanting to check out. Most would respond, oh, cool. I went hiking last month too. Connection over. A great follow-up, what drew you to that trail? Or what do you enjoy most about hiking? Simple. Laughably simple, but profoundly impactful. One approach makes the conversation about you. The other makes it about them. Guess who people remember as the better conversationalist? Master follow-ups. And you stop interviewing. You genuinely connect. The difference is felt, not seen. Chapter 4, the 70-30 rule of conversation. Here's a golden ratio for connection. Roughly 70% of the conversation should be them 30% you. Sounds extreme, maybe. Especially if you've been raised to think being interesting means talking about yourself. But the most charismatic people know being interested is far more powerful than being interesting. The 70-30 rule isn't about being silent or becoming an interviewer. It's about directing the conversational spotlight onto the other person, making them the star. Here's where most people get it backward. They think the goal of conversation is to impress others with their knowledge, experiences, or wit. But what if I told you that approach almost never works? People rarely remember what you said, but they always remember how you made them feel. And nothing makes someone feel better than being genuinely heard. The 70-30 ratio creates a psychological safe space where people feel valued. And when people feel valued, they associate those positive feelings with you. It's like emotional alchemy. Think about a time someone let you talk about something you're passionate about. How did that make you feel about them? Now imagine creating that feeling for everyone you meet. Ironically, following the 70-30 rule actually makes you seem more interesting, not less. It's the conversational equivalent of playing hard to get, share less, and people naturally become more curious about you. Chapter 5, questions that create psychological safety. The most powerful questions make people feel safe to share authentically. Psychologists call this psychological safety, the sense that you can be yourself without judgment. When you create safety through your questions, people open up in ways they rarely do. The result, a connection that goes beyond surface-level chit-chat. Let's talk verbal cushioning, a technique that makes sensitive questions feel safer. Instead of asking, "Why did you leave your last job?" Try, "If you're comfortable sharing, I'd be curious what led you to make a change professionally." Notice how it creates a buffer of safety. You acknowledge potential sensitivity and give them an easy out. Another technique, sharing the step. Offer a small self-disclosure before asking a question. I found my first year after college pretty challenging. How was that transition for you? This works because vulnerability is often reciprocal. Show a little authenticity, and others feel safer doing the same. Funny thing about safety, we all want it, yet rarely create it for others. We worry about judgment, forgetting everyone else feels the same way. Questions that validate before they probe create instant safety. That sounds challenging. How did you handle it? What an interesting choice. What led you in that direction? Validation removes judgment, opening space for authentic sharing. Chapter 6, reading the room before you ask. Even the perfect question can flop if asked at the wrong time or in the wrong context. Reading the room is the unspoken art of questioning. Start by assessing their current emotional state. Relaxed and open, stressed or rushed. Your questions should match their state. Ask a deep, philosophical question when someone's distracted and it feels invasive. Ask a surface-level question when they're contemplative and it feels shallow. We've all been guilty of tone-deaf questions, like asking about someone's dating life right after a breakup. Reading the room prevents those connection-killing moments. Cues tell you almost everything about someone's openness to questions. Crossed arms, minimal eye contact, short responses. That's a sign deeper questions might not be welcome yet. Leaning forward, strong eye contact, elaborating on answers. That's basically an invitation for more meaningful questions. Cultural context matters too. What's considered curiosity in one culture can feel invasive in another. And the setting changes everything. Networking events call for lighter questions than a one-on-one coffee meetup. Here's a simple rule: the less familiar the relationship, the easier and more comfortable your questions should be. As trust builds, gradually increase the depth. Chapter 7. From small talk to deep connection. Small talk gets a bad rap, but it's like warming up before exercise. It preps the conversation. The problem isn't small talk itself. It's getting stuck there. Conversations have levels. Clichés and pleasantries, facts and information, personal opinions, feelings and experiences, needs, hopes, and dreams. Most chats never make it past level 2, but real connection lives at levels 4 and 5. The trick is moving through these levels naturally, without forcing it. Here's how you might progress. How's your week been? Level 1. What's been keeping you busy lately? Level 2. Which parts of that do you find most engaging? Level 3. When did you first realize that was important to you? Level 4. Where do you hope that might lead in the future? Level 5. Each question builds on the previous answer, creating smooth depth without feeling awkward. Counterintuitive truth. People are often relieved to move past small talk. We cling to it because it feels safe, but it's unsatisfying. The key: universal, deep topics that are meaningful without being too personal. Ask about values, lessons learned, or sources of joy. What's been bringing you joy lately? What's something meaningful you've discovered recently? These questions naturally invite sharing and create real connection. Have your interests changed in the last few years? It's funny. We're all walking around hungry for meaningful connection, yet we keep serving each other conversational, empty calories. Be the person who brings nutritious questions to the table. Chapter 8. Digital Questions. Connection through screens makes asking great questions even more important. Without body language and nonverbal cues, your questions have to do heavier lifting. Digital communication, texts, emails, video calls, comes with unique challenges. Messages can feel abrupt. Tone is easily misread. Building rapport is harder. The solution: questions that compensate for what's missing. Ask questions that acknowledge context, check emotional temperature, and create clarity. Questions that work well in person can feel interrogative online, so softening language is crucial. Try a simple check-in before diving in. How's your energy today? How's your week been unfolding? These give context normally visible in person. Digital chats often miss the subtle, meta conversation, those tiny adjustments we make based on cues. Questions can recreate that. Does this feel like the right direction for our discussion? Would it help to explore this aspect further? Screens make hiding easier, but ironically, people crave authenticity even more online. Questions that invite genuine sharing create rare, meaningful connection in a mostly superficial digital world. Chapter 9. The questions you should never ask. Even skilled conversationalists need boundaries. Some questions, no matter the intention, create disconnection instead of connection. First on the list, questions that trigger defensiveness. These often start with why and feel like challenges rather than curiosity. Why would you choose that career? Why didn't you do it differently? Why questions make people feel they must justify themselves. Instead, swap them for what or how. What drew you to that career? How did you decide on that path? Small tweaks like this transform defensiveness into openness and turn ordinary digital conversations into meaningful exchanges. How do you approach that challenge? Another category to avoid: the hidden agenda question. These aren't really questions. They're disguised statements or judgments. Don't you think that's risky? Wouldn't you rather have a more stable job? People can sense when your question carries an opinion or judgment. Distance grows instantly. Leading questions are just as tricky. They presuppose an answer or push someone in a certain direction. You must be exhausted from that, right? Isn't that frustrating? Even if you're correct, leading questions steal someone's agency. They feel manipulated rather than understood. Question stacking is another common mistake. Asking multiple questions at once overwhelms the brain. One at a time, with genuine curiosity and space to answer fully, is always more effective than a rapid-fire barrage. Here's the counterintuitive part: sometimes the best question is no question at all. Knowing when to stay silent or offer a supportive statement is the mark of true conversational intelligence. Chapter 10. Putting it all together. Your question toolkit. First, opener questions. They create comfort while opening doors to deeper conversation. What's been occupying your mind lately? What's something you're looking forward to? These are open-ended without being too personal. Next, follow-up questions, the secret weapon of great conversationalists. What was that experience like for you? How did it impact your perspective? What did you learn from that? For psychological safety, keep a few phrases ready. If you're comfortable sharing, "What's your take on this?" I'd really value your thoughts. Reflective questions signal that you're truly listening. It sounds like blank was important to you. so you felt a blank when that happened. It's not about memorizing perfect questions. It's about cultivating genuine curiosity. When you're truly interested, the right questions flow naturally. The most important element, the listening that follows. A mediocre question paired with excellent listening creates far more connection than perfect questions with rushed attention.